Greetings everybody and welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So this is Tuesday night and we are now going to continue to do What's New every Tuesday night. That's the way it's going to go from this point forward. Metal has been moved to a late hour on Friday night to try and capture that kind of dark era. That's what I was trying to do. Plus I want to do more shows with both of those elements. So without further ado, what's new? So what's new we are doing this week is an album by The Pretenders. Yes, they're back doing an album called Relentless. Well, the truth is it's actually Chrissie Hynde. There's actually, I don't think there's anybody left from the original Pretenders except for her. But that's fine. Many bands are doing this. There's actually some bands that don't have anybody that's original and they're still making music. Okay, so The Pretenders, Relentless is the album name. I'll give you the vitals like I normally do when I'm doing these things. Excuse me. Album was released September the 15th, 2023 at the Battery Street Studios in London, England. 48, almost 49 minutes long, like within a second. The label is a Parloform label, and David Wrench is the producer on this album. So appearing for The Pretenders, Carwyn Ellis on electric and acoustic guitars and mellotron, Chris Hill on bass, upright bass, Chrissie Hynde on lead and backing vocals, electric guitar and percussion, Dave Page on bass, Chris Sonny, I believe that's how you pronounce it, on drums, percussion, tambourine and backing vocals, and last but not least, James Walburn on backing vocals, electric and acoustic guitars, bass, piano, mellotron, organ, percussion, and synthesizers. So, there are 10 tracks on this album. All of them, I find, okay, so the generalities about the album, we'll talk about that first. So generally, overall, I find it a bit of a raw album. Like it's got a kind of a raw sound to it. I don't know if they intentionally did that or they wanted, or maybe it's just the production mode that they used. I'm not sure. I don't find the album's production is great. I don't think it's terrible. There are some murky spots, especially where her voice is concerned, and that may be to try and maybe cover up some inadequacies in her voice. I don't know. I haven't followed The Pretenders for, God, it's got to be 40 years now, so I don't really know. I'd have to listen to them a lot more to be able to determine that. However, her voice still sounds like Chrissie Hynde. There's still that Chrissie Hynde sound to her voice. Maybe it's not, maybe there's some breaking or scratching, or maybe it's not as up to snuff, and it's understandable. It's been 40 years since she came on the scene, the same as a lot of these older musicians use different noise structures to try and keep their voice sounding close to what it once did. But anyway, that to me that wasn't an issue. I think her voice was good for the album. I found the album a little bit raw though, overall, and a little bit too melancholy and perhaps too melodic for The Pretenders. To me, I don't think of The Pretenders as a melodic, heavy, emotionally down group. I always thought them as an upbeat, clean sounding pop band with some power pop parts to their music as well. I don't find that here on this album. So let's get into the tracks. Losing My Sense of Taste. This is a heavy guitar track, really heavy actually, for The Pretenders. I found it very heavy. Chrissie's voice sounds fine on this track. I didn't have any issues with it at all. And the guitars are almost grindy to distorted in certain places, which gives it that kind of raw feeling that I was talking about earlier. The second song, A Love. This is a poppy but catchy track. Bass is pretty heavy on this track, and the vocals are much clearer. This song, actually, of the songs on the album, sounds pretty close to what I'm used to as The Pretenders. It's the one song I've noticed that on. There may be a couple of others, I'm not sure. I haven't got through the notes yet. Domestic Silence is the next track up. Heavy melodic guitar riff. The voice is strong on this track. Her voice is frontal, a very dominant part of this track. The sound is raw. The guitar solo is kind of scrapey. So it's good, but it's just not what I've come... It kind of reminds me maybe a little bit of that first Pretenders album. A little bit of it. But more melodic. If it was faster paced, then it would have probably recaptured that pretty well, but it wasn't. The next track out was probably the first one on the track that album I didn't really care for much. It's called The Copa. Slow, methodic opening, very subdued, mellow tune. I really didn't care for it much, so I'm not going to say too much about it. The fifth track on the album, which is called Promise of Love. A nice piano opening here. The vocals are a little bit too subdued for me, and the overall feeling of the song is that of subdued, and I didn't really like this song much either. Merry Widow melodic. Merry Widow. It's very melodic, almost melancholy, very heavy mood. The back half picks up and gets heavier and faster as they go along in this song. So I started out not really liking it, but it picked up quite a bit, and I liked it quite a bit towards the end. So I did pass this song. I thought it was a pretty decent song. Let the Sun Come In. I think I rated this as the highest and the best song on the album. For me, it was very upbeat, heavy track, pretty heavy vocals as well, but they were cleaner. The bass is very frontal here. The drums were catchy, and the guitar riffs were very catchy. Both drums and the guitar went very well here in this particular song. I think it's the best track on the album, to be honest. Look Away. So then, after having listened to that, I quite like that, and then they kind of drop off again. Look Away, which is an acoustic guitar part, which I didn't mind. Chrissy's voice is clear for the most part on this track, but very subdued. It's like she's really sad and melancholy, and yeah, just a bit of a depressing song, to be honest. Your House Is on Fire. Very, very heavy, melodic, but subdued. Very melancholy song. Maybe the most melancholy on the album. I didn't really care much for that either. Just Let It Go. Another acoustic guitar bit on this one. A bit melancholy. With some heavy guitar riffing towards the end, which kind of brought it up a bit. So I gave this one a pass as well. Vainglorious. Heavy, upbeat guitar. The vocals were strong and fast. I just found the constant repeating of the title, Vainglorious, I found it a little bit boring, to be honest. So I didn't care for this track much. I didn't hate it, though. I didn't hate it. I did give it a pass. Okay, the last track also fails for me. I Think About You Daily. It's a very sad and melancholy song that basically talks about reflection upon the loss of somebody, which isn't bad, but on an album already replete with a lot of kind of depressing songs, it just stood out as being depressing. So overall, I would say this album gets maybe, if you're doing the 5 scale, I give you a 2.5. If you're doing my scale, I give it maybe a 5.5. So I don't really think this is an album that has motivated me to want to go and buy it. And I don't normally say this when I do new stuff, but I was surprised. I thought I would like this more than I did, because I always liked the Pretenders quite a bit, and just got away from them because it became part of that time period where I got away from music. But I didn't really care for it too much, and that's my bottom line. So if you got anything to say about the album, please put it in the comments down below. Please like if you like the video, and subscribe. It's much appreciated. And we'll be back next week with another episode of What's New. I'm hoping that I have the new Stones album by then. I'm looking to get it next weekend. I've already listened to it in its entirety a couple times. I actually think it's. I want to review it. It looks like such a fun album, and maybe the best Stones album since the '70s, since Some Girls. And I'm quite happy to listen to it again. So such a well put together, constructed album, I think. And the Stones put out 4 or 5 songs on there. I absolutely loved them, and then some of the other ones maybe not so bad. So anyways, I'm hoping I can do that review next week for the Rolling Stones. So please, we'll see you then. Please join me for that, and we'll see you then. Take care. Bye.